started.
Okay. Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to our April Cabinet meeting. Apologies for the late start. I think that's a few technical hitches on my part, but I'm really pleased to say they're all resolved now. So good afternoon and welcome. If we can start then our meeting today with apologies. We've got apologies from the Chief Executive, from Councillor Giles and from Councillor Truman, I believe. Are there any other apologies?
No more apologies, thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you. So the next item then, declarations of interest.
Yes, Leader, declaration of interest on item 5, the Education Achievement Service Business Plan. I'm a board member.
It's a non-prejudicial interest, Leader, so we'll just record that, but Councillor Jevons can speak on the matter.
Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for that. Item number 3 then are the minutes from our March meeting. This was the meeting that was held on the 10th of March. These can be found on pages 3 to 12 of your packs. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to go through these, the minutes. And firstly, colleagues, have you all had an opportunity to go through them? And secondly, if you have had that opportunity, are colleagues content that these are a true record?
Yes,
So
thank you, Leader.
Okay, thanks very much. The next item on our agenda today then, item number 4, are the Key Stage pupil outcomes, and this report is available to you on pages 13 to 24 of your packs today. Now, colleagues, as you'll be aware, education has been affected by the pandemic, and I think it's an absolutely outstanding testament really to our educational professionals and everybody that supports those professionals with the achievements that they've been made. They've been outstanding in supporting our children and young people, and we need to have that very much at the forefront of our minds. So due to changes in pupil outcome performance measures and the pandemic, as you'll be aware, the Welsh Government cancelled all statutory pupil data outcome collections for the end of the academic year in summer 2020. So no school end of phase data was submitted to local authorities, and each school continued to record internal teacher assessment for their own pupil progression purposes. So no moderation processes were held between schools in Wales. Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5 external examinations were cancelled, and these were replaced with a centre assessment grade system. So Welsh Government didn't collect or publish Key Stage 4 or 5 outcomes. Due to the significant changes in the makeup of GCSE, vocational, AS and A-level courses, and the absence of external examinations, any locally produced outcomes should not be used for accountability purposes. Data comparisons or trends should not be used in an attempt to analyse this set of pupil outcomes. The purpose of the report is to provide a contextual view of anonymised schools rather than the performance of the local authority or individual schools. Now, this information should be used appropriately. The local authority will use a wider set of information to evaluate each of its schools, and this will include the school's ability to self-evaluate, the success of the school development plan, the quality of teaching and learning, and also, and importantly, the school's capacity for self-improvement. The report shows that there has been significant increases in pupil outcomes, but it is not possible to determine if this represents school improvement or sustainable improvement. Charts within the report show WJEC outcomes over 10 years, with noticeable gains of around 10% in the final column, which represents the August 2020 centre assessment grades. The Newport Key Stage 4 and 5 results represent the 8 English medium secondary schools in our city. Our Welsh medium secondary school will have its first end of Key Stage 4 outcomes in summer 2021. The key stage 4 results do show that Newport schools have the highest and lowest capped 9 outcomes in the region. This is also evident in key stage 5 outcomes. To add context, it should be noted that Newport has a diverse set of secondary schools with significant differences between the volumes of learners entitled to free school meals. Newport has one secondary school in the city with highest level of deprivation out of the 32 regional secondary schools representing 5 local authorities. We're exceptionally proud of our learners here in Newport and the centre assessment grades that they've been awarded. We fully understand and appreciate how difficult and challenging this has been for our learners. And we really thank them for the efforts they've made. I think it's very easy to, as adults, to sometimes overlook the impact that this has had on children and young people, and I think we need to pause actually and reflect on the efforts that our children and young people have been making, because it has not been easy for them, and I think it's really important that we acknowledge that. So we are exceptionally proud of them, and this has been against the backdrop of a pandemic and significant changes in teaching and learning as they adapted to their last and most significant term of their GCSE, AS and A-level courses. Now, we will continue to work with all of our schools to prepare and support them for the further modifications in centre assessment grades for summer 2021 and beyond, and to ensure that our learners have the most appropriate transition between the next stages of their lives, whether that is within schools, in apprenticeships, the world of work, or further or higher education. Welsh Government has committed to supporting the capacity and conditions to allow each secondary school to have robust centre determined grades whilst maintaining whole system integrity for 2021. This will provide public confidence and give value to learners that the grades that they will be awarded have been through a very thorough validation process. To support this process, Welsh Government is allocating funding to help centres with some increased capacity to attend professional learning offered by WJEC to support the centre determined grade process, to allow time and space for schools and colleges to develop an assessment approach and undertake internal quality assurance, and to provide time for our head teachers and college leaders to discuss the process and outcomes with other schools and colleges, to provide reassurance and transparency for both centres and learners. And every centre across the region will receive a significant sum of money this financial year to support these principles. So colleagues, I think what's really important as we consider this report and the information contained within it is that we consider the outstanding efforts of our education professionals, but we're also mindful of the impact that this has had on our young people, and an absolutely outstanding performance by our young people. Their commitment has been fantastic, and I really would like to say that the Chief Executive and I had the privilege to meet with head teachers and thank them ourselves for the work that they've done and the efforts that they've made. But I think it's really important in this public meeting that I give my thanks and our thanks as the City Council to all of our young people for their efforts at what has been a challenging time. So that's the report that we have before us. Colleagues, would anybody like to comment on this report?
I think you've summed it up nicely, Leader. It's a very good report. I concur with your sentiments regarding our teachers and head teachers.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. I wonder, Andrew, you're with us today, if you'd like to comment on the report.
Thank you, Leader. So, as you've laid out, this is quite an extraordinary year in that it was a new method of awarding grades. It moved from purely centre determined grades to from a hybrid of an algorithm. So there was a lot of disruption for pupils during the summer as they were receiving their grades. On top of the pandemic, that's an additional level of stress. And just want to say, I completely agree with, we need to praise them for the achievements that they've made. Although the results were really extraordinary and they showed a significant improvement on previous years, that actually represents the hard work that the students have put in over a long period of time. For this year, we've got centre determined grades, which are going to alter or work in a slightly different way. So students will be doing assessments within schools, and that'll be subject to quality assurance, both within and with WJC. Again, it's another level of stress for students having to go through a new process. But again, just take my hat off to them for their hard work, and particularly for the teachers and the head teachers that are supporting them, and the learning support assistants that work very closely with them to make sure that their well-being is managed and cared for as well as their academic progress.
Could I say something, leader? But my problem, my hand is not working. So if I can, it's just what's been interesting is that from the parents' perspective, really, because I don't think they realise what it's like to homeschool, and I think how they can appreciate what teachers are helping and doing for their children, because I know my own family now that they're pulling their hair out sometimes of trying to teach at home, and it's and some of them clearly are so pleased that the schools are opening now, because it is a tough time to homeschool if you're not in that way inclined.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that actually. You know, we need to say a huge thank you to all those parents and carers out there who have tried to support their children and young people through this, because it's not been easy for anyone, has it? It really has been a very challenging period indeed. So, colleagues, thank you very much for your comments there. I'm not sure, was there anybody else like to comment? No? Okay, so then, is somebody happy to move the report?
Happy to move that, leader.
Second.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. Thank you. The next item on our agenda today, item number 5, which is available to you on pages 25 to 58 of your packs, is the EAS business plan. And again, I think there's another group of quite important people that we need to say a big thank you to today. So I'm delighted to see that Sarah and Ed are here with us today. So the business plan has been developed in collaboration with Newport, Torfaen, Monmouthshire, Caerphilly and Blaenau Gwent. And the business plan will support all schools and settings, ensuring an entitlement to a range of professional learning and bespoke support which aligns to their own school improvement priorities. And certainly, having had a very recent experience of being supported by the EAS, I know how valuable that is to us all. So it really is a service that is particularly helpful to us. So full consideration will be given to the current climate in which schools and settings are operating in, and I'm sure that that Ed and Sarah might like to comment on that. The business plan also includes Newport Education strategic priorities, which are of course aligned to ESTIN recommendations. And colleagues will recall our recent meeting with ESTIN when we were able to discuss their priorities with them. And this helps to ensure that our local and regional school improvement priorities are connected in order to have the best opportunity for success. And it's important to emphasise that, because this is for all of our young people in the region. So this is really important that this is a joined up approach. Now, the plan itself has been through a really robust consultation process with head teachers, governing bodies, cabinet members, scrutiny committees and young people. And the plan, I understand, will be submitted to Welsh Government later this month. It will, of course, be monitored regularly to track its delivery and impact, and reported termly through the Joint Education Group, which includes our Chief Education Officer and our Cabinet Member for Education. And it will also be monitored through the EAS Company Board, which Councillor Jevons represents us on. So I think at this point, colleagues, I'll just hand over to Ed, Assistant Director of the EAS, to describe the overall ambition and 11 key priorities which are set out within the plan.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Leader, for that comprehensive introduction. Joined by colleague Sarah Davis, who is Principal Challenge Advisor for Newport. I'm sure Sarah will say hello at the end of this bit and add any sort of local elements on. Before going to the 11 priorities, I just wanted to reminder only briefly under 1.1 that the AS is your school improvement service. We are owned by the 5 local authorities. We are a company, but we're not an independent company, and you're aware of those governance routes in with members sitting on and providing the strategic direction for us. I did want to cover on 1.2, it's worth saying, following on from the previous item, that because of the paucity of data or meaningful data this year, the LA Annex is no longer included, but we're working with partners in local authority moving forward over the plan to have more useful data that we can actually get from schools rather than the end of stage data, the data that pupils are making the right progress that they need in this recovery phase. In terms of recovery, again, this is just a couple of elements between 1.4 and 1.6 on the report. It's critical now that we return with positivity, that we are learning the lessons with our colleagues in schools, with our colleagues in the local authority of the last year. We're retaining the best elements of that. We're retaining the best elements in the way in which we work. For example, the week before Easter, I trained 200 governors in one virtual session on data training. Not ideal in some ways, but some of the efficiencies of reaching people are more effective than they were previously. We've had hundreds and hundreds of school leaders that we've reached in and practitioners in classrooms virtually in ways we haven't before. Its collaboration is absolutely key, and building upon what worked well during this period. With the 11 priorities, these are under 1.20. I'm not going to go through each and every one, but we hope you feel, as did the scrutiny committee with the positive comments, that they reflect the 5 strategic priorities for Newport, ranging in support for well-being, critical and at the heart of everything, both practitioners and learners, and that we will support across that with colleagues in LA, the quality of teaching and learning, particularly with blended and distance learning, when we need to perhaps return to elements of that for some of our schools with local lockdown, potentially the support for specific groups, disadvantaged of vulnerable learners, but also other groups that could have been disproportionately hit by this last year, ensuring that schools who are best placed to support them have the right networks in place to learn from each other on that. Continuing with curriculum for Wales at the right pace, because that remains a national strategic priority, and getting the professional learning right. And I would say the main underpinning one, I haven't covered all 11, but the development of leadership at all levels is absolutely critical as we return. So for us, those are the priorities. The final bit for me was to touch on the finance elements, because I think it's important to say that delegation rates, when this report was written, we didn't have full picture, but delegation rates will remain at that 94% and above as they have grown over the last 10 years to that level. We will put the funding where it's needed in schools, not retaining it at the centre, and you will see a small element with the local authorities' contribution of that funding reducing from the 815 to 803 to 787 with that 2%, I think it's 2% efficiency saving that was put forward. It is an efficiency saving, not a reduction in service, is the critical final point to make. Thank you, Leader.
Sarah, would you like to comment? Oh, you're on mute, Sarah.
Yes, good afternoon, Leader. Good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to be back in Newport, having been a serving head in Newport for over 10 years. It's nice to see some familiar faces on the screen. I think the point that Scrutiny Committee made was really important about strong partnerships and strong networks. The partnerships between schools in Newport have been strong for many, many years, and the partnerships between schools in Newport and across the region have been a strength, and they're a strength of this region because many schools in Newport use their expertise and excellence to support many schools across the region. but the relationship between the EAS and the local authority is a great strength. And I am very, very confident that we will continue to work together in the best interest of all learners and staff and families and the communities in Newport to come out of this pandemic, to learn. I've been very fortunate to have been very involved in our Celebrate, Share, Support and Refine model, where we've really looked at what learning we can take. And as Ed has said, schools are positive. They are very positive places in the main, and they are looking to build on the excellence and the improved relationships that they have been able to nurture and develop, particularly with families and with the communities they serve over this time. So I think there's a lot to be optimistic about. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you. Andrew, did you want to comment at all?
Thank you, Leader. The business plan is a very comprehensive and evidence-based one, so I'm absolutely confident they will help schools recover. The key thing for me is that schools are reopening next week, and I want families and students to be able to return with confidence that they're safe places to come and learn and to celebrate their successes. We've worked really closely with schools to make sure that they have really appropriate risk assessments and that staff and students are safe to come back and have the very best experience. And that's my absolute priority for next week. Let's get everyone back. Let's have an enjoyable experience, a good summer. Let's get everyone back on track, and let's get well-being and learning back in the forefront.
Absolutely. Councillor Davis, would you like to comment there?
Yes, I do apologise. My hand's not working either. I can't find one anywhere. But I wanted to say to you, and especially to Ed, is thank you for the support that you've given to governors over the past year. It's very much, as you quite rightly say, it's been online meetings, but the training and the support has been continuously been there. And when I've needed specific supporters as chair of governors, you've come back to me and helped me and advised me and give me the advice and help me to take things forward. EAS have been superb this year in ensuring that governors can be efficient and do their job properly as governors. So thank you so much. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Jevons.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yes, the business plan is a very detailed document that we do sort of every year. But this year in particular, given the pandemic, there were some real buzzwords in there for me that have been mentioned, such as partnership and positivity. And certainly in the bullet points in 1.2, 1 to 4, in the pushing of blended learning and those 4 bespoke points around how we move away from this pandemic towards back to normal school, as we put it. But I'm really pleased to see those 4 points in there, which do address the need to carry on in some cases with blended learning for vulnerable children. And again, there's not really a need for any child to have any time off now, is there? If we look at it from the point of, perhaps they have a broken limb or something and unable to attend, then blended learning and home learning can take that place. But I'm very happy to see those 4 points in there and a very good business plan. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for that, Deputy Leader, and also thank you for the support that you've shown for the EAS on our behalf. I think that's very important. Would anybody else like to comment? Okay, I can't see any more hands. It doesn't necessarily mean that nobody wants to come in. But I would like to comment because I think something that's been highlighted here that is really important, and that is the support, the very special support for our schools and for our learners, because our schools are very different. And certainly reflecting on that as a school governor, the schools I'm on are so different. They're so diverse, and yet the support they've had during this period is tremendous, and that's enabled them to support their learners. It really has. So my personal thanks to you for everything that you've done with that. So I don't think we've got any further comments. So colleagues, is somebody content to move the acceptance of the business plan?
Happy with that, Leader.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody happy with that?
Yes, happy. Yeah. I didn't move or second it because of my declaration of interest, Leader.
Okay, thank you. There we are then. That's great. Thank you very much. Ed, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for everything that you do to support us.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you all, Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Okay, so we move on to item number 6 on our agenda today, and this is the replacement local development plan post-consultation endorsement of review report and delivery. Oh my goodness me, that is a lot, isn't it? But actually, this is the first stage, isn't it? So it's an excellent report. It's available. This information is available on pages 59 to 104 of your packs today, and I have to say it does provide us with some absolutely comprehensive evidence, which was very interesting to read through. So as you're aware, the replacement LDP review report is a document which sets out the key legislation and policy changes which have occurred since the adoption of the LDP back in 2015. The document also includes an assessment of what LDP policies are working well and which need to be reviewed. The replacement LDP delivery agreement is a timetable setting out how the council intends to manage and deliver the LDP. It also sets out who, when and how the council will consult and engage during the production of the replacement LDP. Now, as you recall, colleagues, both of these draft documents were brought before Cabinet in October 2020, and we agreed for them to be subject to public consultation. The public consultation has now taken place, and we're being asked to consider the comments received, approve the suggested responses to those comments, and endorse both documents for presentation to full council. Following the endorsement by full council, we'll be able to formally submit to Welsh Government, and acceptance of this by Welsh Government will signal the legal commencement of our LDP review. So this is indeed a very important step for us, colleagues, and you see that in the report pack there's quite comprehensive information there in terms of the consultation feedback on the review report, and I'd like to thank everybody who did respond on this, because whilst we have had a number of organisations respond to this and stakeholder organisations as well, we have also had a number of individuals, so I'd really like to thank everybody who's taken the time to respond to this. And some of the responses that we should be mindful of are that the Future Generations Commissioner has noted that planning is a priority area in terms of delivering wellbeing goals. And I think it's really important that we take account of that going forward. Now, in relation to the delivery agreement itself, Appendix B of the report sets out all of the responses received. Again, there was general support for the delivery agreement, and some of the comments received included support for the proposed timetable and some helpful links actually to stakeholders who hadn't previously been identified, and also questions on the impact of engagement with COVID-19. So I think that's really interesting, isn't it, as we move towards recovery and people highlighting that. So as a result of our public consultation, a small number of minor changes have been made to both documents. These documents are also set out within the appendices, and links to the new draft documents are also contained within the report. So Cabinet, today we're being asked to consider and approve these documents and agree them to be referred to full council with the intention of formally submitting to Welsh Government. So at this stage, Councillor Davis, would you like to comment?
Yes, it will work. Could get off mute. Thank you, Leader. I wanted to support your comments in relation to the contributions that have been made by many organisations, public bodies, individuals and our local community councils. They are constructive comments, really, really helpful in taking this, the LDP forward. And it really is it really is welcome that residents of Newport feel that they are able to and want to participate in this process, and know with confidence that their voices will be heard, because this will be taken forward. As you quite rightly say, the document's been adapted and future consideration will be given to the points that have been put forward. So I'm completely in support of taking this forward to full council to be endorsed, and if approval has been agreed there to take it to Welsh Government, I think it's an excellent document that starts us on the process of developing our LDP. Thank you, Leader. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davis, and thank you for steering the ship in relation to this particular item. Are there any other comments from colleagues on this item?
No, nothing from me, Leader.
No. Okay then, so are colleagues content to approve the report and agree it should go forward to full council?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Seconded.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you very much for that. Do appreciate it. The next item on our agenda today is item number 7, which is the anti-fraud, bribery and corruption policy statement. So this is on pages 105 to 118 of the packs that we've got in front of us today. And the purpose of this policy statement coming to us, colleagues, is for the Cabinet to approve this following the submission to the Audit Committee. So our Audit Committee has agreed to note and endorse the policy statement, and they have recommended that we approve it. I think it's important also to note that in line with good practice, we are required to have such a statement. And this has actually been the first review for a couple of years. So as you know, Newport City Council is one of the largest organisations across the city, and we control millions of pounds of public money. We take seriously the high expectations of the public and the degree of public scrutiny to which the council's affairs are subject. Now, good corporate governance requires that the authority must demonstrate clearly that it's firmly committed to dealing with fraud and corruption, and will deal equally with perpetrators from inside and outside of the council. In addition, there'll be no distinction made in an investigation and action between cases that generate financial benefits and those that do not. The intention is to encourage a culture of deterring fraud and corruption, while sending a very clear message that if activity is identified, it will be dealt with firmly, consistently and appropriately. So we've had an opportunity to consider the policy, colleagues, and this has been recommended to us by our Audit Committee colleagues. So Cabinet, we've been asked to receive, consider and formally approve this policy statement. Everyone's had an opportunity to read it and go through it. Would anybody like to comment?
I think you've summed it up well, Leader, to be honest. If you read the report, it goes without saying, doesn't it, really, to support the...
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Cochrane.
Happy to move that, Leader. Yeah.
Second.
Thank you both. Colleagues, is everybody content to agree the policy statement?
Yes, thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. The next item on our agenda is item number 8, the Code of Corporate Governance, and you can find this on pages 119 to 142 of the packs that you have before you. The purpose of the report is for the revised Code of Corporate Governance to be formally approved by Cabinet, so that's why we have it in our papers today and why we've been provided with this information. And again, it's important that we do have an up-to-date code of corporate governance, and our code of corporate governance has been updated and revised to comply with the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy and the Society of Local Authority Chief Executives and Senior Managers published good practice, delivering good governance in local government framework and delivering good governance in local government guidance notes for Welsh authorities. Yes, you can read more about that in the pack, but I can assure you that the Code of Corporate Governance does align to all of that documentation. And the code sets out Newport City Council's approach to achieving and maintaining good corporate governance. We see corporate governance as aiming to do the right things in the right way for the right people in a timely, inclusive, open, honest and accountable manner. It comprises the systems and processes, cultures and values by which the council is directed and controlled, whilst demonstrating its accountability and its engagement with citizens. Strong, transparent and responsive governance enables the council to put citizens first by pursuing its aims and priorities effectively and by underpinning them with appropriate mechanisms for managing performance and risk. In order to maintain citizens' confidence, these mechanisms must be sound and must be seen to be sound. The system of internal control is a significant part of this framework and is designed to manage risk to a reasonable level. It provides reasonable, but not absolute, assurance of effectiveness. Internal control is based on an ongoing process designed to identify and prioritise any risks to the achievement of the Council's policies, aims and objectives, ensuring the way that the Council's resources are used are effective, efficient and economic. So colleagues, you've had an opportunity to go through the report. The report is there with you and you've had an opportunity to consider the revised code. Colleagues, are you content to formally approve the revised Code of Corporate Governance following its presentation to you and the comments that we've received from the Council's Audit Committee? So would anybody like to comment on that before we go? Okay, so I see that the Deputy Leader has moved it. Is somebody happy to second that? Thank you. Excellent, thank you colleagues, and very important report there for us. So the next item then on our agenda today is item number 9, and this is our COVID response and recovery update report. And as you'll be aware, colleagues, since we found ourselves in this situation, we have been receiving regular monthly reports as a cabinet on our progress to date in terms of our response and also our recovery action. And I know that for many of us, there's been an opportunity to reflect on the anniversary of the United Kingdom going into the first lockdown and remembering all of our loved ones, friends and family members who've sadly lost their lives to COVID. So we were able to participate in the National Day of Reflection to remember that. But actually that's something that we reflect upon all the time as we try to move forward. It's also an opportunity to reflect back and thank those people who've been working on the front line in our hospitals, social services and care homes, emergency services, teachers, our refuse workers, our shop workers, and all of those who've given up their time to volunteer and support their communities, their neighbours and those in need. For Newport Council, this has been an unprecedented year where we faced many difficult decisions. We've seen our residents and businesses in our wards impacted by COVID and the restrictions to protect the most vulnerable in our communities. There isn't one person who hasn't been affected by this pandemic. As the leader of Council's Cabinet, I've seen how councillors across all political parties, officers and our strategic partners in health, Newport Live, the Shared Resource Service, Newport North and other service providers have come together to solve emerging issues and find innovative and new ways of delivering our services and supporting those people who really need our help. And Cabinet also knows that there is more that we can and will do to support the people and businesses out of this crisis. There will be new opportunities for us to continue making Newport a better place to live, work and visit, and also to improve the resilience of our communities. So since we last met, colleagues, I think Welsh Government have presented us with the time frame for the gradual easement of restrictions, which is very much data driven and based on the evidence, with a strong focus on public safety and public well-being. As we move forward, we will see restrictions gradually eased, and we'll also carefully monitor the impact of that. And as colleagues have already said today, one of those important easements in terms of those restrictions is an opportunity to welcome all of our children and young people back into schools from the 12th of April. So that is certainly something that we look forward to. Now, over the last month or so, work has continued in terms of our recovery, and we've been able to actually continue to make progress with some aspects of work that may have got delayed somewhat by the response. There's been a tremendous response locally from local businesses in terms of their donations of laptops and iPads to children in residential homes and in foster care to support their education. And I know that Councillor Cochrane and Councillor Hughes have been very closely involved with that, and so I'd like to thank all of the volunteers who've refurbished those items in order for our young people to benefit from them. That's a tremendous activity, and it really does help those young people moving forward. But we will continue to move forward as a city as well, and I'm really pleased to note that in terms of sustainable development, we took delivery of our first electric refuse vehicle. This is the first in Wales. So when it comes to recovery, our focus is very much on sustainable development in its broadest sense. We've approved major developments such as the Newport Centre, the Transporter Bridge, and received support with funding from Welsh Government for their development. We've opened another residential home, and we've also, and I'm very proud of this, and I'd really like to just highlight this, we've also worked with health partners on participatory budgeting in order to enable community groups to bid and obtain funding that will help them to deliver local projects to their residents across Newport. And I'd really like to pause, and colleagues, please allow me the indulgence of this, because this is one of the most exciting aspects of the ongoing work with communities across Newport. And I'm really proud that we were able to, working with health colleagues, enable to put a system in place which invited representatives from groups who'd been impacted by COVID across the city to put in bids for funding support to take forward projects across the city. Now, what's particularly exciting about this project, and what really does delight me by this, is that this was a bidding process which the public had the opportunity to select the winning bids. So it's very much about the public, people in communities choosing the bids that they felt would be better for their communities. And we've seen over £100,000 be distributed to our communities across this project. But what highlights this for me is the number of bids that were received by the steering group. over 80 bids were received from groups across the city, and there's a value of over £400,000 from these bids. So people continue to work together and continue to try and work together for the betterment of their communities. And I'm really proud of the people of Newport, and so very proud of these community groups. And I'd certainly like to see this particular model used as the model going forward for our community COVID recovery fund that we've set up as a city council. Now, Councillor Mayor, I can see that you've had a lot of involvement in this as the cabinet member. Would you like to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Firstly, I take you back before a wonderful ending to this report, is that I hope that people remember that the public sector have been found to be the people who have run everything during the COVID. If it hadn't been for the public sector, you know, everything would have just ground to a halt. Lord knows what would have happened. So a big thanks to all those public sector agencies, the health, the recycling, the refuse, the teachers, etc. They've all played their part. And all our officers who coordinated it, our goal team especially, you know, at the beginning of this, it was a nightmare for everybody. Everything closed down, and we just, within weeks, had it back up running as best we could. You finished off with the recent initiative on the participatory budget. This was just a marvelous thing to happen, and it was so well run and so well participated. I've forgotten how many. You know what I'm like with figures. There was several hundred people who applied to it. Most surprising, really, if you see the list of those who were unsuccessful, unfortunately, at this stage. But a great number were successful on this. And Councillor Cochrane and I have been looking at communities for a number of years, because we feel that the city should be, well, but should be much more the catalyst for community organisations, to help them, to support them, to give them funds where they can, to advise them where they can get funds and so on. And this was, for me, was almost like out of the blue, out of left field. What I've been, and Paul and I have been talking about for a number of years, suddenly it happened here, and we had a participatory, and we don't know how many organisations we've got, you know, really that are live. I know that the Community Connectors list does show you that, but there must be, it covers a wider area than the Newport. So that is a fabulous initiative. I hope we can do it again before the money runs out, because it helped so many people, and they were so enthusiastic, and the way that they approached it, and the professionalism, and the video presentations and so on, it was just wonderful. I'm really pleased with that. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mayor. Deputy Leader, would you like to come in there?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Just to draw your attention to the background of this, and some of the points that are written here, that over 1.2 million people in Wales have received their first dose of the vaccine, and it is important that they receive their second dose. In my age group, I've been very fortunate enough to have the first dose, but in that point, it does say the council alongside Newport Live have been supporting the NHS. And I just wish to put my thanks out to Newport Live, the council and NHS, when I went for my first dose, on how efficiently it's run. And you can see by the way that that's done through the mass vaccination centres, how we've managed to vaccinate all those people. It was a very, very well organised, well run event. Well done, NHS and all those involved. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Deputy Leader. Would anybody else like to comment? Councillor Cochrane.
Yeah, I just like to echo what the last two speakers have said, and really I think there's got to be a big thank you to Welsh Government here, to be honest, on that hardship fund. There's no question about it. It's been a lifesaver, hasn't it, really? Because I don't know how we would have managed without that. And I think when you think about it, I think Welsh Government, in all fairness to them, I think they've been leading the way on this. Like today, we're the only out of the 4 regions now that have introduced a 3rd vaccine now that they're doing in Carmarthen. So I think, you know, it's all credit to them. I think what's come out of this COVID, if anything, is the sharing and responsibility that we've taken as a region as well. We have shared when we've had access of PPEs. We sent it to other areas who were short. We were instrumental in organising the vaccine with one of our officers for the 5 authorities. So it's this coming together with the region. And I think it's all credit to everybody, really. They're pulling together when the chips are down. It just shows what can happen, and we're all working together. And I think it's and the COVID, it's been horrible, but I think what's come out of it is how we can work together regionally. And helping each other as 5 authorities. Thank you, Leader.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Cochrane. Councillor Davis.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I wanted to focus a bit more on the participatory budgeting plan and how it came about. Yes, it was a consequence of COVID, but also if we remember back to the dark days of the Black Lives Matters protest, and it was a huge realisation on our part as particularly yourself as leader and as cabinet, a realisation that there's a lack of engagement with our most disaffected members of our community, or a lack of engagement in those who are in most need, a lack of our ability to hear their voice. And we felt this was a key opportunity to hear people's voices and actually then participate and actually come up with the projects that they wanted to spend money on, rather than us as a council creating a diktat and determining how that money should have come from. So that grassroots level of developing that project, and then seeing that engagement and seeing these projects come to fruition, and then that vote being taken place within communities to get that choice of how that money should be spent, is exactly how we should definitely move forward as a local authority. It's that grassroots level of engagement, that grassroots level of decision making that we need to focus on, to ensure that what we do is for our residents and not what we decree should be for our residents. Thank you, Leader.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Leader. I agree with all the previous comments. I would like to thank Steve Ward of Newport Live and the NHS and everything they have done, because this awful situation has highlighted how well we work together and how well we all have the same hair and we all have the same. It's nothing to do with politics. It's about humankind looking after other humans, and that has been starkly noticed throughout this COVID pandemic. The help that's been offered and gratefully received by a lot of people is kept Newport running, but more importantly, it's kept the injections, that everything has gone as it should have gone. And I take my hat off to all involved. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Thanks, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. And I think all colleagues have actually mentioned today something that's absolutely essential in terms of the way that we've worked through this, and that's partnership working. And I was really pleased to hear Councillor Cochrane mention the partnership working between the local authority leaders in Gwent, because as you say, Councillor Harvey, irrespective of political affiliation, we've done our best to work together to try to achieve positive outcomes for our residents across the city, and that's something that we continue to do. And as Councillor Cochrane rightly highlights, we've done that with an incredibly high level of support and engagement from Welsh Government. And I would like to share with you the positive feedback by the Deputy Minister for Equalities on the work that we've done here in Newport with members of some of our Black and minority ethnic communities in terms of supporting people to take up the vaccines through the vaccination programme. So absolutely, partnership working is key to this, and partnership working will be key to the recovery moving forward. And we'll receive further updates on this next month. So colleagues, are you happy, content to approve the report?
So move.
Second.
Okay, thank you very much then, everyone. Thank you. We move on to item number 10 on our agenda today, which is our Brexit update report. You can find this on pages 159 to 166 of your packs. And colleagues, as with our COVID recovery report, the Brexit update report has become a standing item on our agenda, and it provides us with an opportunity really to reflect on ongoing activity and latest updates on the current position for us here in Wales and here in Newport in relation to this. So we continue to closely monitor the potential impact of Brexit and the impact of COVID restrictions with this. And I think we all agree that the future economic resilience of both Newport and South East Wales is vital to ensuring that businesses can survive. And it's also important that we promote our Newport offer to homegrown entrepreneurs and also global businesses. Now, having a diverse and sustainable economy that's able to provide sustainable growth to our communities is critically important, not just to level up, but also to provide opportunities for our communities to thrive in the long term for Newport's future generations. So you've had an opportunity to consider the report that we have, and you colleagues will also be aware of the UK government's announcement on the new Levelling Up Fund and the UK Community Renewal Fund that is being introduced to replace the EU structural funding that we've previously benefited from in the past. Now, one of the things that I'd like to highlight to you that is contained in the report, but I'd just like to emphasise this, colleagues, is that both of these funds are determined by a competitive process. So whilst they are available to us and we can bid into these funds, we're not guaranteed to receive any or all of the bids submitted, and I think it's important that colleagues are aware of that. Furthermore, it's also important to be aware that Newport and South East Wales has no guarantee that it will receive the same level of funding as what we've previously received under previous arrangements. So whilst that fund is there and we will be actively bidding for the benefit of our citizens into it, there are no guarantees, I'm afraid. Now, when I reflect on Newport, I think for me, what makes Newport a great city to live, work and visit is our diverse and inclusive communities and groups. We have, and we always will be, a welcoming city for people from all nations, no matter their race, sexuality and religion. It's very concerning for myself and this cabinet that we may still have many European citizens living and working in Newport that may not have still have applied for EU settled status, and also those who are presenting themselves to the council with no recourse to public funds. Newport City Council, alongside community groups and other organisations in Newport, have been promoting this scheme and encouraging people to apply. And what I'd just like to say at this time is, as I've said previously, is so important. If you are one of these people, or if you are part of this group, it's so important that you apply to this scheme and that you encourage your family members, friends, work colleagues to apply as well. Anyone who's struggling or unsure what to do with this, please contact the council or visit our website. We can help you with this. And also, colleagues, as elected members, we've got a moral responsibility to ensure that we support our residents who are unsure about how to apply for EU settled status. Now, our communications team continue to share Welsh Government information and ensure that this is available to people. Within the first 3 months of the new arrangement, our services haven't had any significant impact, although there has been some increase in the costs of procurement reported. We do have contingencies in place to support us with this and support us with the risk around this. Our regulatory services have continued to offer support to businesses, and community cohesion officers continue to work with EU communities. Local groups and charities are also offered the opportunity to access food poverty support that may have been affected by Brexit. We'll be receiving additional funding in 2021-22 to support our food poverty work, and there will be greater emphasis for our community hubs to provide debt and housing advice to those presenting to the Council. Now, all of that information is before you in the report that we have with us today. And so, colleagues, if you're content to receive the report and to agree for regular updates as progress is made through this transition period. Would anybody like to comment on that? Okay, are members content to receive the report?
So moved.
Thank you very much for that, colleagues. Now, the next item on our agenda then is item number 12, our Cabinet Work Programme. It's on pages 167 to 174 of your packs. Are members content with that?
Yes, thank you, Leader.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Now, colleagues, normally at this stage I would close this meeting, but I cannot close this meeting today without giving a huge thank you to our Mayor, Councillor Tom Suller, for his tremendous efforts. It's been a very difficult time during COVID with the restrictions for Tom to carry out mayoral duties, but he's been really keen and enthusiastic in order to try and raise as much money as he can for Alzheimer's, which is his mayoral charity, and I'm delighted to congratulate Tom on his successful sponsored walk around Tretyga House, and I know that cabinet colleagues will be very pleased to congratulate Tom as well. But what I would like to highlight to cabinet colleagues, to fellow councillors and to citizens of Newport, you can donate to the Mayor's charity should you wish to do so, in recognition of the efforts that the Mayor has made, but also in support of such a good cause. So congratulations, Tom. Well done. We're really proud of you. And at that point, colleagues, I think we can draw the meeting to a close.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.